What's the first thing that pops into your mind when you hear the word comfort? For me, I think of comfortable pajamas. I think of snuggling up on the couch and maybe binging some Netflix. I think of having some popcorn with me and maybe a nice drink because that's comfortable, right? When we hear the word comfort, we often immediately think of those things that bring us comfort. But when we look at the word comfort zone, I want us to think real hard about what that word means in that context, because it's not that comfortable place on the couch snuggled up with your kitty and your Netflix. It is quite a different type of comfort. So today we are going to be talking about the comfort zone, why it can be a dangerous place, and how we can get out of it, and what's going to happen when we do step out of that comfort zone, the different zones that we're going to have to pass through until we achieve the goals that we desire. So, welcome to our Wednesday broadcast. I'm so glad that you are here. If you are tuning in live, be sure to say hello and let me know where you're tuning in from. And I want you to let me know what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word comfort zone. If you're watching later on and catching the replay, welcome. Hey, just so you know, if you're watching this weeks from now, I jump into the comments to say hi to everybody and to have, keep that conversation going. So feel free to chime in. And if you're watching this after the live is over, we are going to be really diving deep into that comfort zone today and how we can recognize when we're stuck in the comfort zone and how we can get out of that comfort zone and the zones that we're going to have to pass through. So welcome to the broadcast, everyone. My name is Sarah Campbell. I am a business coach and mindset coach for music studio owners and online education experts just like yourself. And every Wednesday I go live here at 12 noon Eastern, or 1 p.m. today because something happened. And we talk about business. We talk strategies. We talk about mindset. We talk about how we can find the right mindsets to run our businesses in a way that we feel confident. And we talk about something called awesometicity, which is where you get to embrace what makes you awesome as a teacher so you can show up authentically in your business and run it like the amazing person that you are. So welcome everybody to the broadcast. Good morning to Natalie and Heather. And I believe that, I got the MTZ Music Studios. I believe that's Pete. And Laura's tuning in. Hello there. Hello there, Anna. Finally some sunshine today. I'm so glad that you're getting some sunshine. So tell me, what is the first thing that you think about? What's the first thing that pops to mind when you hear the word comfort zone, right? We're going to be talking about what a comfort zone is and how we can define them, how we can recognize them, and then how we can get out of our comfort zone so that we can achieve cool things. Hey there, Autumn, nice to see you as well. Hey, as we love to learn out loud here on the Wednesday broadcast. So if you are new, or if you've been here every week, just a reminder that if something really stands out to you, and something really makes sense, if the light bulb goes off, if you have an epiphany, you can give us a hashtag takeaway in the comments and then share what that takeaway is. It makes it really great when people come back through and they're watching the broadcast later on because they're going to see all of our takeaways. And so we get to learn out loud in a really cool way. Also, I do have something set up for you today with the Coach Sarah bot, as always. So if you drop a comfort below, you're going to get show notes from today's broadcast, and I'm also going to include some other cool things. So you'll want to do that, and the Coach Sarah bot will message you here on Messenger. Shall we get into this? All right. Oh, great. I see that Heather has told us what she thinks of comfort zone. Mac and cheesing my business. Tastes yummy, gets me through in a pinch, but doesn't maybe move me forward my overall business health goals. Ooh, I like that analogy. That's really good, right? If we're mac and cheesing our business, we are not, we are not necessarily moving towards that big goal that you had in mind, right? We're going to have to put a little bit more work in there. We're going to have to find some better recipes. Leslie says, the comfort zone equals safe and successful. Okay, ooh, we're going to examine that. I like that you said that. That's really good. Comfort zone makes me think of the word familiar. Laura, I would agree with that. Oh, yay, that is Pete. I thought so. Okay, So let's examine the comfort zone, shall we? All right. So there are many different zones that we have to pass through in order to get what we would call the growth zone. The comfort zone is the starting place. And yes, we can think of the comfort zone as like the place where, you're eating your mac and cheese and you're watching your Netflix. But the comfort zone truly, what is the comfort zone? It is a place where we feel safe. Leslie, you mentioned that, right? It's a place where we feel safe, and it's a place where we feel in control. Now, that could feel like a good place, right? Being comfortable, that sounds like a positive thing. But what can happen inside of that comfort zone is that we will deny ourselves the opportunity for growth because we want to feel completely in control, and we don't want to do something outside of that comfort zone. Now, all of you have stepped out of your comfort zone many times throughout your life. I want you to think of a moment when you made a decision. Let's focus on the business, right, for a second. I want you to think of a moment where you made a decision in your studio or your online music business where you did something really scary, where you stepped out of your comfort zone and you were like, you know what, I have to learn how to do this thing, or I have to make this shift in my life. That didn't feel very comfortable, did it? No, of course not. Because when we're doing something that's unfamiliar and we're taking a chance, taking a risk, there's some elements that, and feelings that pop up that certainly are not comfortable. So that's why the comfort zone, while it can seem, very appealing, can also be something that pauses our business and puts it into this kind of like stasis where everything stays the same and nothing changes. And you know what? That can be okay. That can be okay to sometimes live in that comfort zone where, you feel good about the procedures, where things are working well. But life doesn't stay the same all the time, does it? Of course not. Things change. And so what we have to be able to do is to leave those comfort, to recognize when the comfort zone is actually not comfortable anymore. Because it's not very comfortable to give up on a dream, right? Just saying. All right, so how do we get out of that comfort zone? Let's talk about this. I'm going to bring up a little graphic here. I'll move off to the side so you guys can kind of see it. So you guys have probably seen a graph that looks like, I even practiced this one. A graph that looks like this one, right? If you Google comfort zone image, you're going to find a lot of images that kind of look like this. Mine just happens to have branded colors on it. And in the middle, we have, on that yellow part, we have the comfort zone. And on the other end, we have that growth zone, that green color, right? In between, we have a couple of zones where we have to pass through in order to achieve that growth. We call that the fear zone and the learning zone. And so we see these graphs where it looks like it's just going to be this direct line from the comfort zone into the fear zone, into the learning zone, and then into the growth zone. But does that actually happen that way? No. You may take a step into that fear zone, and then you might retreat to the comfort zone, right? You may change your mind about making a decision. You may leap out of that comfort zone, go directly into the learning zone, and skip over fear. And then maybe after you learn a little bit, you take a step back and then you get scared. So the growth, my point is here, the growth line outside of the comfort zone, when we're headed towards growth, it's not always direct. It actually kind of looks like these little squiggle marks and these dotted lines going out and around because we are constantly shifting in and out of these zones. So let's recognize some of the things that we find inside of each zone. We're going to break them down. Okay, cool. Pliny says, today was one of those days where I took the risk to go out of my comfort zone, still feeling butterflies in my belly, but it worked. Yay. So there's like still that little residual like fear, right? But they're starting to dissipate. Leslie says, sometimes you work really hard to get to that comfort zone, but times change and you must be willing to move forward. Very, very smart. And she says, Pliny says, you're right. It's not linear. All those crazy lines you've added are the real thing. Yeah. And actually, if you type the word comfort, I'm sending you guys that graphic. You're going to see it pop up on the page later on this week too. I had fun making that. All right. So here's what we're going to identify. So we start with the comfort zone, right? We start with the comfort zone. That's where you feel safe, and that's where you feel like you're in control. But time passes, things change. That zone is no longer comfortable because you have a new idea, or you know that you need to make a change in your life or in your business. It's time to leave that comfort zone. So what comes next? Well, then we find ourselves in the fear zone. Now, this can be a scary place. Obviously, the name is fear. In this zone, we are going to feel a lack of self-confidence because we've left that comfortable space, right? And nobody likes to feel unconfident, right? That's just not a comfortable feeling. But when we can recognize that it's only temporary, right? It's only temporary. That lack of confidence is only temporary because you're doing something new. That's going to allow us to start moving beyond the fear. Sometimes, though, it doesn't, because in the fear zone, that's where we also start finding excuses. I can't make that change because it will upset a client. I can't make that change because it would involve investing in a program. I can't make that change because exercise is hard and I don't like how it feels. We can come up with all of these excuses as to why we can't make that shift. And if we listen too hard to those excuses, then we're going to retreat back into the comfort zone. This is also a place where we find ourselves affected by others' opinions. So go back to that first example, right? I can't make this change in my policy because the story I tell myself is that my clients will get mad, right? Because we are making up a story in our mind about how people are going to react. They're not even reacting yet, but we've made that story up in our mind about how they might react. And because nobody likes to make people mad, then we decide, okay, I won't make that change. So those are the things that we find in the fear zone, right? And all of those things can cause us to move backwards. Or if we examine those things in a different way, and we examine our mindset when those little ideas pop into our head, then we might have the ability to move to the next zone, and that's the learning zone. Inside of the learning zone, so let's say you've made this decision to make a change in your business or to add a new practice into your business, right? Maybe you've decided, like, I'm going to get really good at this Facebook thing. Or I am going to get really good at building an email list, right? Then you think, okay, I can do this. You're moving past the comfort zone. You're going into the fear zone. Those little butterflies pop up like, oh my gosh, what if nobody downloads my lead magnet? Oh my gosh, what if nobody likes my Facebook posts? If you listen to those fears and fears get too real, then we can retreat. But if we tell ourselves, no, this is part of the process. Fear is part of this process. I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to take another step. So when we do that, then we're moving into the learning zone. In the learning zone, this is where we actually start to deal with challenges and problems, right? It's where we decide, okay, so if that Facebook post didn't get a lot of engagement, all right, I have to examine what I'm posting. Let's figure this out. Am I doing this in a smart way? Am I asking for engagement? Am I posting the things that my ideal client wants to see? That's when we start examining the challenges and the problems, right? We start to troubleshoot and we figure things out. This is where we acquire new skills, right? Where we get to learn stuff. And I know you guys like learning things because you're teachers. You do like teaching things, and at one time you had to learn all those things. So we got a lot of learners in the audience. Pete, yes, the lack of self-confidence and the reasoning, the excuses, exactly. Pliny says if we stay in the comfort zone when with the lies that we tell ourselves are stronger than are willing to see ourselves and living our goals completely and fully. And those lies can feel really strong, right? They can feel really loud. Those voices that are telling you can't do it, they can feel really loud. But we have to remind ourselves that in order to get to the growth zone, we have to pass through those other zones. We have to pass through those other doors. So we're now in the learning zone. We're acquiring new skills. We're extending our comfort zone because as we learn these new skills, that fear zone starts to dissipate, right? The comfort zone starts to push out. We've created this new zone with that learning zone, and we find that we've made a more comfortable space. Pretty exciting. Here's where we get to go to the really exciting part, and that's the growth zone. In the growth zone, that's where we find our purpose. That's where we know I am doing this for a specific reason, because you start to see the payoff of making that shift. You start to realize, you know what? This is totally something that I can do. This is totally in my wheelhouse now because I stretched my abilities, I learned a new thing, and I was able to push past that fear. And here's the fun part. Once we reach that growth zone, this is where we can start to set new goals, right? So you've achieved something, you've conquered this objective, and that is where growth can start to really happen. And that's why when I made this graphic, right? When I made this graphic, I didn't make it linear. It's not a straight through. This is weaving in and out of the different zones, pushing and creating new comfort zones, and then starting back at the beginning when that comfort zone is shifted. It's an exciting process. And here's where people get stuck, right? They get stuck as soon as they come out of that comfort zone and they don't feel confident and they find excuses and they feel like they're affected by others' opinions. Guys, we see this in our students all the time. How many times have you seen a student, let's say a piano student, stop themselves short in that fear zone because they've convinced themselves that a piece is too hard? Or they've convinced themselves that they'll never be able to play octaves, right? They've convinced themselves that I could never do this. Or a singer, if you have a singer who has, the typical, we all have breaks in our voices. They're not broken. They're just different. What if they convince themselves that I'll never be able to sing smoothly through my break? Because they are afraid of even attempting it, to do the vocal warm-ups, to work on the technical exercises that allow them to sound ugly for a second, right? Because that self-confidence, they don't want to sound bad. Same thing happens to us in our businesses when we make decisions, or in our lives when we make decisions. We don't want to sound bad. We don't want to look bad. We don't want to feel unconfident. So we find our excuses because we don't want to have somebody else have a negative opinion of us, and it stops us in our track. So the takeaway today, thanks, Don, right on, woohoo. The takeaway is this: we got to look out for that fear zone, right? We have to know that there are ways not to push through, right? But to understand it and to wrap yourself around that fear and make it disappear. Ooh, I like this. Pete says he used to have an I can't jar in his studio. So when the words I can't came out, I'm assuming your students had to put something in that jar. And yes, Pliny, the growth zone feels so good. Exactly. Oh yes, Leslie, raising rates is seriously tough. It's a mental time worrying about families that'll be mad. Yeah. But in 23 years, no one's ever quit, ever. But talking about and hyping it up beforehand, you have to be confident in yourself. Exactly. So good. So, quick summary, guys, right? As we find ourselves in that comfort zone, that place where we feel safe and in control, but we see something out on the other side and we realize that we have to make a change, we are going to have to be able to figure out and navigate our way through the fear zone. Because once we do that, that's when we hit the learning zone, and that's when we can start dealing with the problems and the challenges. That's where we're going to start to gain more confidence, and we're going to push that comfort zone out so that now we're feeling like we have the space to make those changes. And once we do that, then we can hit that growth zone. And that's where we can set new goals. That's where we can conquer our objectives and achieve dreams. That's where your students can do those things too. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this broadcast today. If you found it valuable, I'll have a little ask. If you found this valuable today, I would love for you to let someone else know about it. Maybe there's a teacher friend of yours that you can let know about these Wednesday broadcasts. Maybe this is something that you want to share with your studio to talk about the fact that, hey, you know what? You voice students, you can do this if we learn to get past the fear. So if you enjoyed today, if you want to say thank you, you can share this with somebody and let them know about the broadcast. That would be amazing. Don't forget to drop a comfort below, and then the Coach Sarah Bat is going to send you a couple things. She's going to send you that funky graphic that I made just because I had a lot of fun with it. You'll see it pop up though on the page later on this week. And she's going to send you a blog post that was really cool. I really, really enjoyed this blog post. It is about the growth zone and leaving the comfort zone, and the way this author broke things down was really awesome. So if you want to get a hold of that, put comfort below, and the Coach Sarah Bot will send you that information. I will be offering some things. Mental block. I've had a funny day, guys. I'll tell you more about that story in a post on the business page later. I am going to be offering some experiences here on the page pretty soon. We are going to be relaunching the Social Media Savvy Studio. It's got some new stuff in it. I just created a new tutorial all about the new Facebook Live producer. It's going to be amazing. So that is going to be opening up soon. And if you want to get information about that, you're going to need to get on the email list. So if you aren't on my email list already, make sure that you put comfort below, and the Coach Sarah Bot will show you how to sign up for that. All right. Yeah, good stuff here. Monica says, after fear comes freedom. I love that. Yay, Leslie. I'm so excited to talk with you tomorrow. And Barbara, catching the end of today with coffee, of course. Yay, I've missed your lattes. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. If you're just catching the end of the broadcast and you're new, my name is Sarah Campbell. I am a business strategist and mindset coach for music studio owners and online education experts just like yourself. And you can catch more business and mindset and awesometicity tips right here on the coaching page at 12 noon Eastern every Wednesday. So until next time, stay creative and stay you, because there's only one person like you and you're pretty dang awesome. We'll see you next week, guys.